Okay, are we live now?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Happy Friday. Happy Friday on the internets, on the Facebooks. We're on the Facebooks. Does this go
Yep.
to the YouTubes as well?
It does. It does. Yep.
Nice.
The
Okay.
the magic of the stream yard.
The
So I don't
streaming
know.
yard.
I like to go play in the yard. This one just happens to stream at the same time.
So we're going to talk about something. We're going to talk about something. I was just in San Diego a week ago, and I thought that everything was far more expensive than maybe what I would be accustomed to when traveling on business. So literally everything was more way more expensive. And in our day-to-day lives right now with what's going on in this inflationary environment that we're in, so many people that we talk to, or even people that you just maybe interact with, like the Uber drivers that I was talking to and the people working in restaurants and hotels,
Hmm.
they don't really they use the word inflation, but maybe don't really truly understand what it is, other than the impact that it has on a person, where it's like, okay, generally everything has increased in price.
Yep.
I still only have the unit of currency. Like I'm still earning the same wage, or even if I got an increase in wage, you're dealing with a unit of currency to buy something, and your purchasing power has been greatly diminished. That is not a way to get ahead financially in any person's life. And so you contrast that with the discussions, the conversations that are happening with clients who have been policy owners for many years. Many years, meaning they've had a policy in place for 7 years or more. And when folks first got started on their journey, we were in the lowest interest rate environment that we had ever experienced. We were not dealing with rapidly rising inflation. We were not dealing with rapidly rising interest rates. So the cost of borrowing, climbing very quickly. All of those things were not part of our reality.
Hmm.
And so when we're kind of shouting from the rooftops that, because we would always get the question in every educational event that we did. Well, how does this help when inflation is high? Well, it's tough to really immerse someone in that if you're not dealing in a high inflation environment. You can talk. So we would say, well, this is gonna beat the pants off of inflation. Okay, what does that even mean?
I
It
don't. I
means
don't know if
that,
we ever used those exact words about beating the pants off of it, but I mean, I think the
like,
gist would have been implied.
okay, well, so follow my logic. You're dealing with a unit of currency, and that unit of currency now is being applied as premium into a policy. And that price, regardless of what's happening in any inflationary environment, that price can never go up.
Hmm.
So your purchasing power, inside of that insurance contract, you're already at an advantage. If you're putting a dollar in premium into the policy, and you have a seasoned policy that has aged, just call it 7 years plus, and now that dollar that you put in is accumulating far more than a dollar, you're still working with the same unit of currency, but now your purchasing power has actually gone up.
Yeah. Every time you put a dollar in, you're getting $1.10, $1.15, $1.20 back.
Like, you're not getting that anywhere else. It's just
Eh,
you're just not getting that anywhere else without taking on risk, mind you. But
Right.
let's just take a look at what's happening. We're taking our kids on a vacation, and they want to go on these roller coasters. And I do not like roller coasters. I'm very risk averse. And, actually had a conversation with an actuary about probabilities and, of an accident on a roller coaster. And so I don't like roller coasters. I won't
He
go
did,
on them.
he didn't have very good news to share.
No. And so it just,
It doesn't
again,
mean that Jayson doesn't like fun. For those that are listening, Jason's a
I
very fun
really,
guy.
yeah, I'm a very fun guy.
He's not anti-fun. He's just anti-roller
I
coaster.
will not get on a roller coaster, and I won't put my money on one either. And especially when you see what's going on right now. Sure, there's going to be wonderful opportunity created for people who really enjoy investing in the stock market and speculating with different opportunities to take an ownership interest in these large businesses that trade in the Dow Jones or the Nasdaq or these stock markets. But really what you are genuinely doing is you are speculating. Whereas if you um, are building your warehouse of wealth and from that place you can go and speculate, then that's your privilege. You can go and do that. But to combat inflation, what does that even mean? Like, does that mean we're going to send you tactical gear and we're going to put you through a boot camp on how to go and, you know, combat inflation? Like, imagine, the scenes from Rambo movies. Like, that's not what we're talking about.
Hey, yo,
Hey,
inflation.
hey, who keeps ringing that bell? I'm trying to concentrate. Okay, so it's if you think about combating inflation, then the discussions that we're having around that is, well, ideally, you would want to have more purchasing power. And if you have an engine that's producing more purchasing power with the same unit of currency, how many units of currency do you want flowing through that engine? It's really no more complex than that because, again, the premium going into the policies can never go up. It can go down, right? If and again, we don't know that everyone tuning in, the 3 people on the planet that are actually tuning into us right now, whether or not they have policies that have that flexibility of additional deposit room or accelerated deposit option or whatever the insurance company characterizes that part of the premium to be. But when you're in a position of total and absolute control, so yes, I was concerned when I was traveling. I was like, oh my God, like everything is more expensive. It's like, sir, can I get you something to drink? Yeah. May I have an iced tea? Yeah, that'll be $427, please. Whoa. Okay. That's a little bit more expensive than, paying a buck 40 that you might have been accustomed to a few years ago. But the engine,
There's also an additional impact there too. I mean, you're down in the States, and so right now, I think, well, at least when you were down there, the exchange rate wasn't particularly awesome, so that would be an
no,
extra adjustment.
yeah,
So that has another impact, but that's not really what you're referencing here. You're
no,
talking about you travel down to the States frequently for business. You're used to buying something. It's this amount of US dollars, and now it's this much more US dollars for
yeah,
that same equivalent item. And interestingly enough, I was having a chat with my father-in-law here the other day. They just crossed the border here. They were visiting, and they drove down to Seattle to see my brother-in-law and his family. He's they have a vehicle. They fill it up with premium because that's what the vehicle requires. And coming from Alberta and driving through, they filled up in like Jasper, the last Alberta hit before they could cross the BC border. What's the old adage? BC's bring cash, and so they he's filling up at premium. I think I don't know the price today, but like it's like $2.70 or something a
oh my
liter.
God,
It's up there. It's up there. I think regular. Like the other day, I filled up, and I think it's because I don't buy anything that requires premium. But I think the regular gas price was like 225 a liter or something like that.
right?
And so there's a big parity between Alberta and BC just in that item. But then he crossed the border, and of course it's in gallons. But he did the math, and the result was it was not quite half price, but although it was much higher than the last time he was in the States, that is true. Comparatively speaking, it was still dramatically lower for that line item than it was in the BC border
Right.
versus when he crossed into the US border. So yes, that price of gasoline has gone up in the US as well, for sure. But if it so again, I'm just like recognizing the relevance. And so that goes to something else we were talking about earlier, Jay, which is what are some of the pressures, the things that are going on that are forcing the general rise of the cost of everything. Now, we could talk about the money printing and quantitative easing and all these kind of stuff. But one of the key things that's driving that cost up in Canada is taxes. And it's the tax on the tax on the tax on the tax that you pay for all the goods that you buy. And when you increase, just for an example, let's just take one line item, call it fuel taxes, and you increase that. Well, now every single truck on the road that brings goods from this warehouse over to the store that you're going to buy it at, it costs them a lot more for that same fuel to bring it from A to B. Now, the guy that runs that business, or the guy or the gal, the person that owns that business, they have to increase their rates for shipping.
Yep.
So that they can accommodate that rise. And that means that the person buying the goods that are at the retail store, or it's the grocery store, or it's the clothing store, I don't care what the store is, they now have to raise their rates because it's costing them more to get that good into the back of their warehouse for their inventory. So a slight rise in just something like fuel taxes, or we'll call it, I don't know, a price on carbon, whatever it is that they're going to do there. These increasing incrementally things, they're stacking on top and stacking on top and stacking on top. And then it's creating a ripple effect that's pushing up the end user goods for every single person.
Yeah.
And, you know, something that we learned from Nelson years ago, I remember we were at one of his seminars down in Birmingham. Nelson told this story about, driving through the States on long stretches of road. He would drive frequently, he loved to drive and look at the mountains, look at the trees. And he would travel between doing seminars. And he did seminars all over the US all the time. And he remembered, driving behind this large, freight truck. On the back of the freight truck, it had, last year, this truck paid $17,500 in taxes. And he says, you follow a truck long enough on a long stretch of road, your brain gets to thinking.
Yeah.
And Nelson sure liked to think. And he's like, wait a second. That truck didn't pay any of those taxes. I paid those taxes.
That's right.
Because all the business owner is a tax collector.
That's right.
Because they just collect, they're required to charge and pay taxes on everything else. They're collecting it so that they can remit that to the CRA. Yeah. So the business didn't really pay the taxes. The consumer had to pay for that. And that's the case all the time. The consumer pays for everything. So there's many factors going into causing this rise in the collective price of goods. But one of those items, if we can get really clear about it, is the rising cost of taxes on things such as fuel. That's adding unnecessary pressure into the pocketbooks of every Canadian. And before I get off my little soapbox, I want to circle back to what you started with, talking about, an individual with a seasoned policy. If they got a policy 7 years ago, 8 years ago, 9 years ago, 10 years ago, and let's just say they were putting in $10,000. Well, $10,000 10 years ago, they locked in the price of the Canadian dollar 10 years ago. They're paying the same $10,000, but they're paying it with weaker Canadian dollars year by year. Mm-hmm. So now in an inflationary pressured environment, if the dollar is worth less, but they're paying that same fixed amount. So effectively, they've inflationarily protected the dollar when they got their policy started. Is a way of looking at it. And now they're in a position where they're getting they're putting 10 grand in and they're getting 12 grand or 13 grand or 14 grand back out every time they do that. But the increase in the policy, it's a pretty wonderful thing to do, wonderful thing to be a part of, without having all the unnecessary risk elements of the typical financial structure that everyone else is out there pontificating about these days.
Yeah, well, you get to control how you finance the things that you need in life, and you're using a warehouse that you've built, and it just cannot go backward. It just keeps getting more and more and more efficient. And so the catch up conversations, the policy reviews that are going on, policy owners, clients are saying, I'm really starting to see an entirely new element of what it means to truly become my own banker, because of all of these external factors that are part of my financial world now. And it's so true. Nelson said, the more you see infinite banking concepts, the more you'll see you didn't see. And so as these different things are happening, whether it's increase in taxes, which brace yourselves, there's a lot more of that coming next year until we get a change at the federal level where some of these nonsense tax measures can be obliterated. But brace yourself, you're going to be paying more for everything. And the sooner,
and because of the taxes, you'll have potentially less of what you're accustomed to use to pay it.
It's not potentially, you will. And if you ask yourself again, pure logic, do we believe the government's going to need more or less money in the future? Well, the answer, logic would tell you more, because when you have unlimited credit and there's no consequences for bad spending decisions other than being voted out of office, what do you think the human condition is going to be? Let's be frugal? Not a chance. And so you've got to shield your hard-earned money, not only from inflation, but from onerous taxation and all those things that can really destroy the wealth that you're working so hard to accumulate. And the policies just can't go backward. That's one of the marvels of these unilateral binding contracts called life insurance policies that are participating. And clients are telling us, we heard it. Hey, this cannot go backward. And regardless of what's happening, political turmoil, increase in taxes, inflation,
2 years of shutting down an entire nation.
Like, my policies just keep growing. And they will continue to do that. And so, again, it takes us right back to the fundamental truth. Your money must reside somewhere. What better place to have it reside than here, where you've got this engine that takes a much weaker dollar today and produces the right strength dollar exactly when you need it. Like, if I reach inside one of my policies now that I put $1 into in premium and it's generated $1.60 in growth, I would say that's a straight uppercut to inflation, like KO'd, down for the count. The fight has been stopped. The belt is coming on. So yeah, we beat the pants off of inflation. And it's only going to continue because of everything that's going on out there. And I know that with the whole climate thing, I don't know if they've bought the thermostat yet with all that money, the big giant thermostat that they're going to put up on the Parliament building to turn the temperature down in the country. They're still just waiting. I wonder if it's going to be digital or if it's going to be one of those giant remember the old when you had to turn okay, can somebody bring that down a degree so we can save the planet? Let's just charge people more. It's not a climate program, it's a tax program, and people are sick and tired of it. And if you're in a position where there's an absence of control, short of voting somebody out and bringing someone new in, regardless of that, you still need to shield your wealth. You need to protect what you work so hard to build. And inside of this engine, where you're building this warehouse of wealth, you're paying no tax on the daily accrual of cash value growth, which is constant daily. It just keeps going up no matter what. You pay no tax on the death benefit proceeds when you have a named beneficiary or beneficiaries, plural. If you're a business owner, the policy is exempt from the passive investment income tax rules. So if you have surplus capital in your corporation that needs to reside somewhere, what better place to have it reside than here? It's just logic. Is it logical to shield what you've worked so hard to build? Yes. Are you motivated to do that? Absolutely. Then you've got to get going. Either create your program or expand your program. And that's what our clients are doing. Like our phones, we keep fire extinguishers next to our phones and our computers now because they're literally burning up with people. I need to get more capital inside of my warehouse. How do I do that?
You feel like we
And
should get a little video clip of that or something. That'd be great to insert every once in a while.
that
Just
would
something
actually, yeah, we should get Andrew's
fire
Andrew's
extinguisher
guy to
on
do
the
that.
phone.
And but again, it's so positive for that when you're having that conversation and a person says, outside of this, like, I mean, this is really the only asset on my balance sheet that is outpacing inflation significantly. And that not only feels good, but it creates just a stress-free way of life as it relates to utilizing that and what you're doing with it in your family or inside of your business. And it's just incredible.
Well, something just popped into my brain, thinking about a gentleman who's a client, awesome guy, and he's got a great policy, a whole family set up with great policies, and he was involved in some of the crypto space and stuff, and that's all fine and dandy. Again, that's a big monstrous space. That's like saying I live in Canada, and like, well, that's a pretty big country, right? So
Yeah.
it's like you tell someone you go traveling and you tell someone that you live in Canada, like, oh, do you know Jeremy? I'm like, yeah, of course, Jeremy from Moncton, whatever.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
So he was doing some things with a service that's recently basically going into receivership, which is Celsius. It was many of our listeners might even be familiar with it. Basically, you could kind of park money there and you could earn interest on it, a couple different ways. The problem is when the market started to tank, what they had is they had a demand problem. So no different than similar to how like a bank, if you went and you asked to get all your money out of there, we had a run on the banks. There was basically a run on this crypto exchange facility, and that caused them to a squeeze of capital. They were undercapitalized basically for the purpose of that.
Right.
And the result is, basically the whole organization is going into receivership. So he's gonna walk away. He'll get some of his capital back, but he won't get all of his capital back. There'll be a loss there. However, he borrowed from his policy to go and fund that. So the money in the policy is still growing. And because he's an honest banker, he's been using his corporate cash flows to make repayments on the system that he did. So he's doing exactly what Nelson would suggest. He's following the process very effectively. It doesn't mean that he's not going to have a loss. What it means is that the loss for the, investment, the speculative investment, is not nearly as bad because the source of funding came from the policy that was always in motion. So the original dollars that he put into the policy never stopped working for him.
That's right. And they never will.
And in that whole process, there's a whole bunch more death benefits that accumulate. And in this case, it's a lot. It's not a little bit. It's a large amount. So heaven forbid something were to happen to this gentleman, a lot more money comes in and it recovers. It'll recover the loss. And in fact, it'll recover the opportunity cost of that loss for his family. So had he not had the policy and he just shoved his money directly into the exchange and the same situation happened, same amount of money, he wouldn't have any of it.
Right.
So you can't get a better, again, quote unquote, rate of return without first controlling the banking function first. So now he's got a multitasking effect on capital. He's got constant motion on his original money, which never left the policy. He used OPM. He used leverage. He used the insurance company's money to go and get the investment speculative deal. Even though there was a loss, yes, he does have a policy loan, but he controls the repayment terms. He gets to deal with that at his own schedule, what works for him.
Yep.
And he already had made a plan to do that anyway, because he was very intentional about what he's up to. The end result is we don't always hit home runs when it comes to our investment life. I don't know about you, Jay, but you've probably had some ones that didn't go as planned over the course of your time on planet Earth. I know I've had a couple doozies. In fact, I'm still dealing with some of them. But what I do know is if I had understood this process when I was 18 years old and before I started buying my next piece of real estate, I first had started injecting capital into a system like this, I would have a boatload more capital that would have helped me deal with the renovations, the vacancies, the tenant issues, all the miscellaneous crap that happened in my real estate investing career. that would have helped manage all that. And interestingly enough, I have one of my units in Edmonton. I just got notified that the tenant gave notice here the other day, so I'm back into finding. Thankfully, I have someone looking after that particular property, but we're back into filling a vacancy again. So it's a constant. And again, that's just the nature of the beast. That's part of what the real estate investment world is like. But had I had capital starting from day one, building up and building up and building up inside of a system of policies like I do presently, there would be an awful lot more available there to take advantage of more opportunity. Because right now, with the market shifts that we're seeing happen, the opportunities that are going to be showing up are going to be very, very, I think, high caliber. There's going to be a lot of really, really positive things that we're going to be able to see for those that are readily available, have ready available access to capital in the next 1 to 2 years.
Yeah, definitely. And as it relates to opportunity, being able to capitalize on that right away immediately puts you at an advantage. And if you're not concerned with interest rates, you're not concerned with borrowing power, because you've got all of the borrowing power at your fingertips, then you can move faster. And it's just, you think back to all these periods of time, like when the 08-09 crisis, there were so many great opportunities that came up and people just didn't have ready access to capital to take advantage of them, except for the wealthy. And why, again, thinking logically, why do the wealthy put so much money into dividend paying participating whole life insurance contracts? Because it makes them wealthier. Shocker. Like,
they like
that's why the wealthy do it, because it makes them wealthier. And so, and you do not have to be rich to get into the banking business. Banking is a process, not a product. The wealthy put money into a product because it makes them wealthier. If you insert the process of becoming your own banker and you're putting money into a product that makes wealthy people wealthier, well, if you want to become wealthier, then do what the wealthy are doing. And then you begin to practice a process. And the only thing that's boring about becoming your own banker is that it always works. It's the only thing that's boring about it. And we need this stimuli as human beings because of everything that we're bombarded with. And then there's this boring process. Oh God, I'm going to become my own banker. I'm going to get wealthier every day. I'm going to pay no tax on the accrual. I'm bored.
How can I go and make this more fun and engaging? I don't know. Let's go and speculate on some crap that I know nothing about.
Well, but you could do that if that's your stimulant of choice. Then you could go and do that, and you could do that without jeopardizing the constant daily accumulation that's going on inside of your own aquarium of capital. And it's just, again, for clients who now have those seasoned policies, they see it. And for people who are just getting started on their journey, well, they're just getting started on their journey in rising interest rates, rapid inflation, political turmoil, tax increases, everything costs more. And when we get past this and go into the next phase and we start to see stabilization, then those clients are going to go, wow, when I first got started, my goodness, and things are great now. I'm going to go and pursue opportunity, and I'm going to. So it doesn't matter what's going on in the economy or anything like that. The process of banking goes on no matter what. And so the sooner you begin to assume control of that function, the less you're penalizing yourself, because the longer you wait, the more you're penalizing yourself. And it's just so amazing to have these discussions with clients who've been around a while and are seeing all of this, velocity and momentum that's been created in their aquarium of capital. It's incredible.
Well,
Isn't that good?
it just got me thinking about something too. So, I mean, one of the most recent policies I got, I converted some term insurance for a policy on my wife, and I put in for the paid up additions rider, the flexible premium is about 26, I don't know, 26, 25, $26,000, something like that.
Yeah.
And the moment I funded that into the policy, my decision, my choice, because the money had to go someplace anyway.
Yeah.
I instantly got about somewhere like around $130,000 worth of initial, like paid for, guaranteed to be there, tax-free death benefit.
That's amazing.
Now
That's amazing.
that's not going to pay out anytime soon. I'm hoping that's, way, way down the road. But the thing that matters is that's roughly about 5 times what I injected in today's capital dollar. That means that, heaven forbid, if something does happen, I'm going to get 5 times more of those dollars back.
Right.
But additionally, I've created a automatic growth model on that $26,000 that must now reach the 130,000.
Right.
So I've turned today's dollar into 5 times of future dollars automatically, just by the virtue of making the decision to put it in.
That's the beauty of it. And that's just
I didn't have to ask permission.
That's just the product, right? The unseen is everything that you're going to utilize that policy for.
Yeah, like the bill I paid the Canadian government for the taxes they wanted to charge me.
Ugh. Ugh.
Which had to happen anyway.
we have some comments on the Facebooks. One is, Richard, say something. Rambo is where I draw the line. And the second is, you guys rock. Well, we think you rock. All of our viewers and listeners, to all 3 people on the planet who tune in to our Facebook lives every Friday. We appreciate you very much. It's we don't have to rent a big space for our fan club party. It's like, hey, can we meet at Starbucks? Well, for what? We're having a fan club party. And if you can't be there in person, we'll Zoom you in. But yeah, it's great. It's great to see people thriving in a high inflation environment. And you get to look at their family banking system, and you get to be on that journey. Like to do that with clients is just one of the most fulfilling elements of this whole journey. And we just love having those conversations.
I thought I would mention too, just I'll put it in the chat box here for everyone who's watching, but I'm actually, we've got a lot of things coming up. We've got our family banking summit coming up, which is sold out right now.
Sold out. Yeah.
So for anyone who's attending, go ahead and put in the comments if you're going to be attending the event. It's great. We've got people coming in from lots of different locations in the country, which is awesome.
Yep.
It's going to be good to see a bunch of clients and be in person with the team. I'm super pumped about that. But also we have a couple other events where you're going to be speaking at the Wealth Hacker Conference in November in Ontario. Yep. And I'm doing a virtual real estate summit. It's called Real Estate Resilience. So again, we're talking about the changing times. This is about, if you're a real estate investor, and how can you have more resilience in the marketplace today, and change your thinking, be around good people talking about how you can think through how to operate your real estate practice a little bit differently in the changing winds of the environment. So I just put a link in there for the summit for people who want to register. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I get to speak on Friday, and I'm going to be doing a bit of something different. I was showing you earlier. I'm going to be doing a bit of a case study on some recent folks that are real estate investors. They've a couple of guys, 2 partners, and they've acquired 22 doors in about 6 months this year. And they've got about $8,300 a month positive cash flow it's created with that. And they're being very aggressive, and how they're going to be now using that to fund infinite banking policies that's going to protect their partnership. So they have a buy-sell arrangement that's going to protect them in case one partner passes away, but they're also building and accumulating capital they're going to be able to use for some redevelopment projects. They're going to be building an 8-plex in a couple of years. And so just a really cool, I don't know how I'm going to do it in 40 minutes, but I'm going to kind of cover all that, and it should be a lot of fun just to show people, again, how are they using capital, putting capital to work with a long-term vision, but with some short-term things that they have going on integrated into that discussion. So
very cool. Very cool. All right. Well, To everyone on the Facebooks and the YouTubes, we're wishing you an early happy Thanksgiving to you and to your families. And we hope that you have just a great celebration, whatever that celebration may be. And we are going to bring the summit to Toronto. I believe that's going to happen in February of 2023. So stay tuned for that. We're going to do a huge event in the GTA, and so that's going to be a lot of fun. But yeah, have a great Thanksgiving. And Rich, we've got some more content to record for the Wealth Without Bay Street podcast audience. So we're going to zip on over there and get that done. So make the rest of your week great.
Right on, brother.
All right.
We'll see you on
the
on our next call. All right.
Okay.